She gave up her flight to help an old man, but what she got in return was far from ordinary. No one knew his name. No one saw him bored. And what waited for her after that one simple choice would change everything she thought she knew about reality. This is not just a story of kindness. It's a story of doors, destinies, and the price of unseen choices. Stay with me, because by the end, you might start questioning every stranger you meet and every seat you give up. She stood at gate 47, clutching her boarding pass like it was a lifeline. The terminal buzzed with voices, rolling luggage, and the scent of burnt coffee. Her eyes darted to the display. Flight 302 to Denver, delayed. Rain tapped nervously against the windows, echoing her rising anxiety. She had a job interview in less than 12 hours. A chance to restart. A chance to leave behind everything. A voice called over the intercom, asking for a volunteer to give up a seat. Compensation offered, but no one moved. People shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Then she saw him, an older man, hunched, with skin like paper and eyes flickering with confusion. He held a ticket in trembling fingers. He had the same flight. The gate agent looked helpless. They were oversold. He would not make it on. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. Her mind screamed no, but her feet stepped forward. "I will take the next flight," she said, barely above a whisper. The agent blinked in relief. The man, startled, tried to protest, but she smiled at him. "It is fine," she said, though her chest burned. The agent rebooked her. Voucher printed. No fanfare. No applause. She sat again alone. The rain had thickened to a curtain. She watched the plane taxi away, her opportunity vanishing with it. Minutes passed. Then someone sat beside her. Not just anyone. The old man. He had returned, but his posture had changed. Straighter, stronger. He leaned in, voice low, calm, edged with something sharp. "You had no idea who I was, did you?" She blinked. "No, I just saw you needed the seat." He smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, but knowingly. "I own this airline," he said. Her breath caught. Cold swept through her arms. The gate, the terminal. Even the rain faded to a blur. The man was not shaking anymore. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small, folded paper. He placed it in her palm. She unfolded it. Her eyes widened. It was not a voucher. It was an address and a warning. Do not ignore this. Your kindness has bought you something, but it comes with a price. Her fingers trembled now. The overhead lights flickered. Somewhere, a baby wailed, and she realized this was not gratitude. It was a test. Her pulse throbbed in her ears. She stared at the paper. It felt heavier than it should, like it carried weight beyond ink and fiber. The address was in bold, printed cleanly. A part of town she had never been to. Industrial. Remote. She looked up. The man was gone. Not walking away. Gone. Her seat was empty beside her. No footsteps. No trace. Only the faint smell of sandalwood. She stood slowly. Her legs felt stiff, like waking from a nightmare. But this was no dream. She held proof in her hand. The terminal seemed colder now. Quieter. The overhead announcements crackled faintly, but none made sense. Every word warped, like underwater speech. She moved toward the exit, drawn not by logic, but something deeper. A string pulled tight inside her chest, tugging her toward that address. A cab waited outside as if summoned. Driver silent. No questions. Just a nod toward the back seat. She hesitated, then got in. The door shut like a vault. Rain washed over the windows and sheets. The city blurred past. Neon signs reflected in puddles. Shadows slipped between alleyways. The silence in the car pressed against her like a second skin. They passed the highway. The skyline faded behind them. No other cars. Just the hiss of tires on wet asphalt. Then the cab stopped. No meter. No charge. Just the driver's eyes meeting hers in the mirror. "You will not find a way back here," he said. Then he vanished. Not walked. Not drove. Vanished. She was alone again. A chain-link gate stood ahead. Rust streaked the metal. The wind carried the smell of oil and old fire. She stepped forward. The gate creaked open without touch. Inside, a warehouse loomed. Tall, windowless. A single light burned above the door, buzzing, flickering, like it hated being on. She opened the door. It groaned like a living thing. Inside was silence, heavy and absolute. The air was thick, not just with dust, with something else. Memories. She stepped inside. Her footfalls echoed. Walls stretched high into darkness. A single table stood in the center. On it, an envelope, black wax seal. Her name, handwritten in silver ink. She reached for it. The room dimmed. Or maybe her vision did. Either way, the light receded as her fingers touched the envelope. She opened it. Inside, a photograph. Of her. Today. At the airport. Behind her, the man. Watching. Smiling. But not kindly. Her breath quickened. Another photo slipped out. Not from today. From years ago. Her mother. Younger. Standing in the same warehouse. Holding a black envelope. Tears welled in her eyes. Her mother had vanished when she was 10. No trace. No answers. Now she had one. And it chilled her to the bone. A door opened on its own at the back of the warehouse. A long hallway revealed. Fluorescent lights blinked on one by one. She walked forward. Pictures lined the walls. Hundreds. Thousands. People. Some smiling. Some screaming. All holding envelopes. All caught mid-moment. She recognized one face. Then another. Her school principal. The nurse from the urgent care. Her old neighbor. Gone, all of them. Vanished over the years. She thought they had moved. But they had been here. Like her. Called. Chosen. A final door stood ahead. Metal. Red light spilling from its edges. She reached for the handle. It burned her palm. Not fire. Memory. Pain from somewhere deeper than skin. It opened anyway. And there he was. The man from the airport. No longer frail. He stood tall. Eyes like coal. Smile like a blade. The room behind him pulsed like a heart. You chose, he said. His voice was no longer warm. It was ancient. Layered with something inhuman. I offered escape. You offered kindness. She could not move. Not because of fear. Because of recognition. She had dreamed of this place. As a child. In nightmares that woke her screaming. Now she knew why. You are your mother's daughter, he said. He stepped aside, revealing a seat, an empty one, like the one she gave up. But not on a plane. This one was carved from bone. Waiting. She shook her head. Tears fell freely now. What do you want from me? She whispered. You already gave it, he said. He handed her another paper. Her mother's signature. Beside it, a second line. Hers. But she had never signed anything. She looked at her hands. The ink was there. Still wet. I do not understand, she said. You will, he replied. Kindness is currency. And you paid in full. The chair pulled her forward. Not with force. With inevitability. Like gravity. She sat. And the room sealed shut. The man stepped back. Eyes glowing now. From the shadows. Others emerged. Silent. Watching. Some familiar. They smiled too. But it was not joy. It was hunger. And in her ears, a sound began. A low hum. Mechanical. Timeless. The building trembled. Her fingers gripped the chair's arms. The last thought she had was not of fear. It was of a choice. A simple seat. Given in kindness. Taken in silence. And behind her eyes, a door opened. Inside that door, there was no light. Only a void that pulsed with memory. Each beat echoing her heartbeat. She felt herself pulled inward, not by force, but by some deep magnetic truth. That did not ask permission. Voices began to whisper. At first, too faint to understand. Then clearer, like old film reels spinning in reverse. They spoke in languages long dead. Yet she understood. Every word. Every curse. The room was gone. The man was gone. The warehouse dissolved. She was nowhere. Floating, falling, standing, all at once. The laws of time curled inward. She was a child again, then old, then ageless. And in that place, she saw the truth. The man she helped was not a man. He had worn faces across centuries, had offered seats, choices, tests. He watched, always watched, searching not for the weak, but the good, because goodness, true, selfless kindness, was rare, and power fed on rarity. Her act had opened a door few could ever unlock, not with strength, but with grace. And now she was inside. A chamber unfolded before her, walls of glass stretched for miles. Behind each pane, a life, frozen, suspended, trapped in a moment of choice. She walked past them, a soldier refusing to shoot, a nurse taking a stranger's pain, a boy who jumped in front of a train for a dog. Their moments, echoing, looping, held in a crystal prison of memory. Preserved, she saw her own scene. Gate 47. The trembling man, her hand rising. She turned away. It felt wrong to watch herself. But something called from behind her, a ticking sound. She followed it, deeper still, until the walls gave way to something more ancient. Stone corridors, etched with carvings, symbols that moved. Even as she looked at them, she touched one. It pulsed warm. A vision struck her, her mother, kneeling, weeping before the same symbol. But not alone, others behind her. A circle, hooded, chanting. The air smelled of salt and rust. It coated her tongue. She stepped forward, and the symbol sank into stone. The wall opened. Another chamber, this one colder, alive. In the center, a tree, but not of wood. Its trunk shimmered like mercury. Its leaves were shards of mirror, and hanging from each branch, an envelope, some black, some red, one gold. Her name was on the gold one. She reached for it. It trembled. The tree whispered, "This is your choice again." She hesitated. Her skin prickled. A sensation like a storm approaching. The envelope opened on its own. Inside, two paths. One led back, to her seat at gate 47, to the plane, the interview, the life she wanted. The other, deeper, past the tree, towards something unknown, something vast, and hungry. The tree spoke again, but this time in her voice. "You can leave, or you can become." She tried to speak, but her mouth was dry ash. She turned the envelope over. A third option now appeared, unwritten, blank. It shimmered, inviting her to inscribe her own path. She looked at her hand. No pen, but blood began to bead on her fingertip. The price of choice. She touched the blank space. It absorbed her. The chamber shook. Leaves fell like knives. The tree cried out, a sound like glass screaming. She collapsed. Vision fractured. Reality bent. When she opened her eyes, she was back. Gate 47. Same people. Same buzz. But the man was already gone, as if he had never existed. She looked at the screen. Flight on time. No delay. She checked her hand. No wound. No blood. But the weight remained. Her bag was beside her. Her name on the boarding pass. But in the side pocket, the gold envelope, still sealed. She looked around. No one else noticed. Everyone moved in their own world. She held the envelope tight and boarded, not because she had chosen to forget, but because she had chosen to carry it. And in that moment, she understood. The flight was not just a journey. It was a continuation. The man had not vanished. He had passed the torch. And now she was the watcher, waiting for the next gate 47, for the next trembling stranger, for the next soul kind enough to open the door. The plane hummed beneath her feet. She settled into her seat by the window, the envelope resting in her lap like a heartbeat. Gold shimmered faintly under the cabin lights. Outside, dusk painted the clouds in streaks of fire. The sky looked calm, but inside her, a storm had rooted itself deep. She stared ahead. Passengers shuffled, laughing softly, heads buried in phones and earbuds. None of them knew. Not yet. She wondered if she had looked like that, unaware, untouched, before Gate 47. The plane lifted. Wheels folded beneath them with a muffled thud. The world below shrank. But the memory did not. She turned the envelope over her hands. Its seal remained unbroken. But now, it was warm, almost breathing. A child in the row ahead turned suddenly, eyes locking on hers. He stared, not like a child, more like he knew. His lips parted slightly, but he said nothing, just nodded once, then turned back to his screen. She felt it then, the thread, the tether connecting her to something unseen, something ancient, like roots in her bones, and wings under her skin. The seatbelt sign flickered off. People moved. A flight attendant passed with a soft smile. Something to drink? She opened her mouth, but the voice that came out was not hers. Not fully. It was layered, like the tree, like the man. Water, she said finally, but the attendant paused, blinking, head tilting slightly. She stared a moment longer than she should, then moved on, and the whisper returned. In her mind, like silk sliding over bone. You are not her anymore. She clenched her fists, felt the press of the envelope, felt her mother's echo in her veins. The legacy of that seat, what had begun as a simple act, had cracked reality open. She closed her eyes and saw doors. So many doors, stretching across time, each one opened by a moment, a gesture, a word, a decision. She now stood in between them, the guardian of choice, the collector of crossings, the steward of unseen costs. When she opened her eyes, the plane was quiet again, but someone sat beside her now. She had not seen them come. A woman, older, silver hair pulled into a neat knot, eyes like ink, deep, endless. You have it, the woman said. Her voice, soft, like a lullaby wrapped in warning. She nodded slowly. I did not ask for it. No one ever does. The woman reached out, fingertip brushing the envelope. It glowed faintly, responding. You are holding more than power, the woman said. You are holding the echo of every act that ever mattered. She swallowed, a knot tightening in her throat. I just gave up my seat. The woman smiled sadly. And in doing so, you sat in another. She looked out the window again. Clouds drifted by, but they were no longer clouds. She saw shapes in them. Figures. Moments. One looked like her mother, kneeling, then rising. She is not gone, the woman said. She waits, behind one of the doors you now carry. The woman stood, pressing something into her hand. A key. Small. Iron. Cold. But be careful, the woman whispered. Some doors should never be opened. Then she was gone. No one noticed her leave. No one had seen her arrive. The flight continued. Hours passed. But time unraveled in strange ways now. She watched the other passengers sleep, and knew some of them dreamed of places like the warehouse, of the tree. They had all been tested. At some point, most had failed. Some never realized the test had even come. The plane descended. Wheels dropped with a jolt. She felt gravity return. But it was not the same gravity. This one belonged to her new world. The runway blurred beneath them. Lights streaked like comets. Then the plane stopped. Doors opened. She stepped out into the terminal. Normal voices. Normal lights. But everything had changed. She carried the envelope. She carried the key. And somewhere in the shadows, eyes watched, waiting for her to choose, waiting for her to open, to return, to test the next, because there would always be another Gate 47, another trembling stranger, another act of kindness, and someone, somewhere, always watching, to collect the price. She moved to the terminal like a ghost in her own life. People passed her, laughing, talking, dragging suitcases. Their world spun in blissful ignorance. But hers had tilted on a secret axis. Every sign overhead pulsed slightly, as if the letters breathed. Every face she passed shimmered for a second, revealing a flicker of something behind the eyes. A choice. A moment. Some already made it. Some had yet to. She walked toward baggage claim. The gold envelope nestled against her chest, tucked inside her coat. Still warm. Still sealed. As she waited by the carousel, her eyes caught something. A flicker in the corner. A man in uniform. He stood still. Too still. Not blinking. Not moving. She looked away. When she looked back, he was gone. Her suitcase slid out, but it was not the one she remembered. Same shape. Different tag. She picked it up, unzipped the front pocket. Inside, a second key, twisted brass, colder than the first, tied with a crimson ribbon, and a note, door 311, South Concourse. Use it before sunset. Her stomach dropped. There was no door 311. She knew this airport. She had flown through it dozens of times, but her feet moved anyway, drawn, pulled, compelled. Signs overhead shimmered again, and suddenly, there it was, South Concourse, a hallway she swore had never existed. It curved left, then right. The air changed. Cooler, quieter. No music, no voices, just the soft buzz of hidden lights. Door 311 stood at the end. Tall, steel, marked with strange grooves across its surface. She reached into her coat. The first key vibrated. The second key pulsed. Both wanted entry. She chose the brass one, inserted it slowly. The door side open. A rush of cold air met her. She stepped through, and instantly, the airport was gone. She was on a train, not a normal train. The walls were lined with mirrors, but her reflection did not match her movement. She sat, no one else aboard, just a low rumble beneath her, and the endless stretch of tunnel outside. Then, a flicker. Someone appeared across from her, not a stranger. Her, but older, eyes lined with time, mouth set in a weary, unreadable curve, scars on her hands, a weight on her shoulders. You used the wrong key. The reflection said. I did not know, she replied. No one does. The other said, but the key does. The train lurched. Lights overhead turned crimson. Sparks danced along the windows. The tunnel outside changed. Not earth, not brick, but bone. Ribs arched over tracks like cathedral columns. And from the darkness, figures watched. Tall, still, faceless. The other version of her leaned forward. You cannot go back. Not from here. I do not want to go back. She surprised herself with the words. They came with steel. No. You want answers. Yes. Then pay attention. The reflection said, and listen closely. The mirrors began to ripple, each one showing something new. A man dropping his wallet. A girl pulling a fire alarm. A woman pushing a child out of the way of a car. Each image, a hinge moment. A crack in the fabric of the ordinary, where choices lived. She saw herself again. Gate 47. Then deeper, other lives. One she did not remember living. A woman in 1853, bandaging a wounded soldier in secret. A librarian in 1941, hiding books marked for destruction. A boy in 2087, whispering truth into the ear of a machine. All of them, her, versions, echoes. The train screeched to a stop. Her reflection vanished. The door slid open. Beyond it, a chamber, circular, lined with doors. Hundreds, thousands, each marked with a symbol. Some pulsed, some wept. One burned softly in the corner. The symbol matched the one from the warehouse wall. She walked to it. The air thickened. Her breath clouded. The key, both keys, dissolved in her hands. The door opened anyway. And inside, a chair, another chair. But this one was not made of bone. It was made of memory. Photographs, letters, scraps of childhood, echoes of her mother's voice. It pulsed softly, like a living thing, like it missed her. And on the chair, A book, black leather, blank pages, a pen resting across it. She picked it up. It was warm. The pen felt like it belonged to her hand, had always belonged. On the first page, a message. Every test must have a recorder. Every crossing, a witness. You have chosen the path of the watcher. She sat in the chair. The room accepted her, closed gently behind her. She opened to the next blank page and began to write. Her handwriting flowed, but the words were not entirely hers. They came from something older, deeper. She gave up her seat to help a stranger, and so it began. Not just her story, but all of them. Each act, each choice, each unseen moment that altered the thread of the world. She was the archivist now, the one who knew, the one who remembered, and somewhere, far above, in an airport that no longer existed, another Gate 47 waited, for someone kind, for someone unaware, for someone next. Page after page, her hand moved, writing names she had never heard before, yet somehow knew by heart. Camila, who paused in a hallway to hold a stranger as they cried. Jonas, who stepped into the sea to pull out a child, never surfacing again. Reiko, who stayed behind in the burning building, because someone else had not made it out yet. Each entry formed with eerie clarity, every detail vivid, every moment replayed in ink and memory. The book was not just paper. It breathed, it remembered, it felt. With each name, a pulse ran through the room, soft at first, then stronger, a heartbeat building behind the walls. The chamber was alive. She paused for a moment, lifting her hand. The pen hovered in the air, dripping with shimmering black ink. She glanced at the next blank page, but it was no longer blank. Her name appeared at the top, etched slowly, letter by letter, as if the book had decided something. She blinked. A chill crept through her chest. She had been writing stories, but hers was not over. The room dimmed, the chair beneath her warmed, sighing like it had waited lifetimes for her to sit down. A quiet hum filled the air. She turned the page. Another blank, but the pen would not move. A voice echoed through the chamber. Not loud, not shouting, but woven through her bones. You must return. Her throat tightened. She had only just begun. She had just found her place. The voice again, softer this time. Another test has opened. She stood. The chair held on, threads of memory clinging to her skin, reluctant to release her. But the doors began to shift, turning, locking, unmarking, all but one. The burning symbol now flickered pale blue. An invitation, a command. She stepped toward it. No more keys. No more hesitation. Just her, and a choice. The door opened into sky. A corridor made of clouds, suspended over a city that flickered like a dream. She stepped through. The moment she did, the city blinked, and she stood in a hospital hallway, dimly lit, smelling of antiseptic, and something far older. No one noticed her. Doctors moved past like shadows. She was out of sync, a silent observer. But then, she saw her, a nurse, late 20s, face pale with exhaustion, but eyes kind, a woman sobbing in the waiting room. No insurance, no English, no options. The nurse paused, looked both ways, then moved the woman through a side door, took her to an unused room, hooked up fluids, whispered comfort, checked her vitals with hands that shook from fear of getting caught. One act. Quiet, hidden, unrecorded by anyone, except her. She reached for the book. It had returned to her hand. The pen burned like fire now. She wrote, Elena Vasquez, Midnight Mercy. The ink glowed, and the world paused for half a second. She felt it, a thread being woven. The air shimmered. Then, she blinked. A subway tunnel. Graffiti glared from cracked walls. A teen stood at the edge of the platform. No one nearby, except her, and someone else. A man, middle-aged, tired eyes, empty hands. He saw the teen sway, one foot dangling over the track, and the man stepped forward. He spoke no words. He just sat down beside him, offered silence, offered presence. The teen blinked, stepped back, fell to his knees. The train rushed by, unseen, uncelebrated, unshared, but not unwitnessed. She wrote again. Michael Brennan, seat beside the edge. The pen pulsed like a heartbeat. She knew now this was the cost of the envelope. Not sacrifice, not suffering, but witnessing, recording what would otherwise vanish into the folds of ordinary time. And with each story she captured, she felt her own roots growing deeper, threading through lives and choices. Across cities, fields, oceans, she watched a girl leave food on a stranger's porch. In the middle of a blizzard, she watched a bus driver stop for a crying boy at 3 a.m. When he was off duty, she watched a firefighter hold an old man's hand, long after the fire was out, because the man had no one else. She watched the janitor pick up a broken toy, left behind by a lost child, and drive 2 hours to return it. Each entry etched in the book was another door closed against forgetting. And then the pages began to thin. She flipped forward. Near the back, one final blank page. Her name, again, but this time, no invitation. Just a line. What comes next must be written in choice. She looked up. The chamber returned. The doors were all closed now, except one. It pulsed. Red this time, different from the others. Warning, maybe, or calling. She stood, heart steady, pen in hand, envelope against her ribs. She walked toward it, not as a victim, not even as a watcher, but as someone who now understood that the smallest acts were echoes louder than thunder. She stepped into the red light, the page still blank, waiting for the next story, for the next kindness that would change everything. The red light swallowed her, not with violence, but with weight. It pressed against her skin, her thoughts, her breath. Inside there was no ground, no ceiling, only a vast horizon, stitched together by veins of burning gold. She floated, or fell, or rose. It was impossible to tell. The book pulsed in her hands, still open to the last page, still waiting, still blank. Ahead, something flickered, a shape, a room formed from smoke and thunder. It shimmered in and out of focus. She moved toward it, feet finding invisible steps. Each one lit up beneath her, a trail of silent fire. As she approached, the door came into view. Not wood, not metal, but woven memory. Photographs, journals, whispers, tears sealed behind glass. This was no ordinary door. This was hers. The culmination of every step she had taken, every seat given, every name written. It opened without sound. Inside, a table, and across it, the man again, older, younger, timeless. He looked up, eyes endless and quiet, not cold, not warm, simply present. You have come far, he said. She nodded. Her voice was gone, but her understanding filled the silence. He gestured to the other seat. She sat, the book closed gently in her lap. Do you know what this is? He asked. She glanced around. A library of sorts. Shelves lined with objects. Not books, but lives. Moments sealed in crystal. Floating, suspended, turning slowly in air. Yes, she said. Her voice returned, wrapped in certainty. He studied her, then smiled. But this time, not with mystery, with relief. You are the first in 1,000 years to reach this room on choice alone. A pause. Then, you may leave this burden behind. She looked down at the book, its cover now silver, its corners frayed. She could let go. She could walk back through a door, live a quiet life, forget the watcher's path. But she did not move. He waited, and waited longer, then asked, why stay? She looked up, and finally spoke. Because someone stayed for me. She remembered her mother's hands, the way they trembled but never let go. She remembered the man in the airport, not his face, but his eyes, They had held centuries. And now, so did hers. She opened the book again, turned to the final page, and wrote, "I remain." The red light dimmed. A wind stirred the space around them. Shells shifted. Crystals whispered. A new room formed. Circular. Open. Dozens of chairs. All empty. Except one. She sat. The man vanished. And slowly, others entered. One by one. Eyes wide, lost, curious. Each of them carrying a choice. A moment. A door. She smiled at them. Not with answers, but with welcome. They would not understand. Not yet, but soon. They would, and she would be there, to witness, to guide, to record, because the world spun on kindness, quiet and unseen, and someone must never stop watching. Her story was no longer a story. It was a thread in a tapestry, woven by countless unseen hands, a tapestry that stretched beyond life, beyond time, beyond memory, and at its center, a golden envelope, still sealed, still waiting, still glowing, for the next one, who would give up a seat, not knowing they were opening the door to everything. She watched the newcomers settle into their seats. Each of them carried something unseen, a burden, a question, a decision they had not yet made. The room no longer felt quiet. It pulsed with possibility, with the same energy she had once carried into Gate 47, when she was just a girl with a flight to catch, and no idea of the path beneath her feet. She closed the book gently, the final page still warm from her words. "I remain." Not a sentence, a promise. The chamber slowly shifted, not crumbling, not ending, evolving. Where once there had been isolation, now there was presence, a new circle forming. Not watchers, but witnesses. Outside the chamber, doors continued to appear, invisible to most, opened by kindness, acted upon in silence, costing more than the giver ever knew, yet rippling louder than any storm. She stood one last time, book in hand, and turned toward the door that had first brought her here. It shimmered faintly, no longer red, but gold, the same color as the envelope that had once burned against her chest. She reached for the handle, not to leave, but to let it open, and when she did, the world beyond was not darkness, but light. Every name she had written, every face she had seen, every choice that had mattered, all of it woven into a sky of stars that blinked softly in her honor. She smiled because she understood, finally, that the smallest act of grace was the seed of eternal. And somewhere, far below, in an ordinary airport, a voice on a speaker said, "We are looking for a volunteer to give up their seat." And the story began again,